I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Edge Mastermind call today. My name is Courtney Moses, and I'll be facilitating the call today. I'm really, really excited for this call today, and we're going to be covering a topic that will have a huge impact on your business and help you shift your mindset if you will allow it. So I want you just to take a minute here and just think about this. Like when I started listening to these mastermind calls, I had my phone on speaker and it was muted, and I'm like feeding my kids lunch, and I'm checking out the grocery store and like all these different errands, right? So if that's you right now, I want you just to stop doing what you're doing, give the kids some food, go find a bedroom far away that you can, lock the door, and just let your kids go crazy for 1 hour. Or if you're in the middle of an errand or shopping or whatever it is, go find a quiet place. And for the next 60 minutes, I want you guys to just tune in, because there is going to be amazing content that we're going over today that is going to make huge shifts in your business if you're going to listen. So be present today. And if there are people that you know that need to be on this call, start sending them text messages now to get on the call. So with that said, we're going to be talking about saturation today, okay? Now, I realize that many of you may have just cringed a little, maybe just thrown up a little in your mouth, right? We hate that word, we hate that thought, and yet we feel it, right? But I want you just to hang in there as we talk about this over the next hour. And I want you to be able to realize that there's going to be some truth to saturation, and there's also going to be some false beliefs on saturation. And hopefully we can cover all of that today and help you realize how to work through that and to continue growing your business, right? So first off, what I want you to do is, if you feel like saturation is an issue, like if you feel like, this has a negative impact on my business, I struggle building my business because of saturation, anything like that, I want you to hit *5 and raise your hand. So if you think that saturation is real and that it impacts your business in a negative way, hit *5.
Go ahead and hit it for me.
Okay.
Hand raised.
Here. If saturation is an issue in your business, hit *5. All right, so I'm really, really shocked. So out of the 100 of people we have on a call here, we have only a couple that feel this way. Now, I would have expected that.
Hand lowered.
In fact, I would raise my own hand on this, right? Because I feel it. And so I just want you guys to know that it's okay to feel the saturation, but what we're going to talk about is how to work through that, okay? So when we look at saturation here, then let's look at the definition of saturation. So if you look at the definition of saturation, it says a state or process that occurs when no more of something can be absorbed, combined with, or added to, right? So meaning you've got max possibility out of whatever that situation is. No more growth, no more optimizing anything, okay? So that's what saturation is, okay? So with that understanding of saturation, then let's look at some numbers here, okay? So just bear with me for a minute, guys. This is pretty cool, okay? So at convention every year, Corey Lindley, he is by far one of my favorite presentations that I look forward to. And he goes over the numbers and the growth of doTERRA, right? And so he usually puts up this picture of the U.S., and then all the states are in different shades of purple according to how penetrated they are with doTERRA, right? And I love listening to him and looking at the growth of doTERRA. And so if we look at some numbers here, I just want to throw some stuff out. So I don't know where most everyone on this call is from, so I'm just going to throw out some numbers. So in the state of Utah, there are 107 diamonds and about 50,000 wellness advocates in the state of Utah. Now, if that's overwhelming for you, I want you to think about this. There's 3 million people in the state of Utah. So what's the percent on that? So if you're good with math, what is that? There's 50,000 wellness advocates, 3 million people. What percent has been penetrated with doTERRA?
I think that's just about 1.5%.
1.5%. So if you look at the definition of saturation, then, meaning that you've met your max possibility out of that, there's nothing to add on or combine or grow in. Is that true?
No, but it sure feels that way.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, and of course, if you were to say, I think there's actually about 4 million people in Utah. But how many
I'm just going off the census report.
Okay, census report. Yeah. So, and then you got to think of households, right? So let's say that you had at least, 3 people per household, then you're looking at about 1 million households. And in that case, you are at 50,000, 100,000 would be 10%. So it'd be about 5%. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, something like that.
So still room for growth, right?
Right.
So let's look at some of these others then. Let's look at what other states we want to look at. Somebody throw out a state to me. I've got all 50 states here. So what numbers do you want?
Actually, go to Idaho because I feel sometimes
Idaho.
Yeah.
So Idaho, there are 11 diamonds, and there are 20,000 wellness advocates in Idaho. So if we go to the census, look at the population here, we got 1.6 million in population. What's the numbers?
1.6 million, and when there's 20,000, so that's 2%. It's about 1%. It's still 1%, because 2 million people would be 20,000 would be 1% of that. So it's just a little over 1%.
You know what's fascinating? Right. What's fascinating about that is this would probably be the heaviest hit part of the universe, meaning Utah and Idaho.
Right.
And so we effectively have a population penetration of 1%. So now what's really interesting about that is in marketing, I'll bring some of my marketing professionalism to this, and that is there's a term called critical mass. And so critical mass is the point in which enough people know about something that it begins to fuel itself, or the social proof either goes positive or negative towards it. And what's interesting about that is that critical mass arrives when you pass 3%. And so what that means is when you reach the point where it feels like most people have heard of something, and then public opinion starts to decide whether it's good or bad, is usually around 3% in a marketing context.
So before that, it hasn't reached enough of the public that people would know it that well. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Meaning that there's true understanding.
Right.
So for example, direct selling or network marketing in general has about a 3 to 4% population. In other words, it's just teetering right now meaning every company.
If you took all the network marketers,
all network marketing companies, all network marketing distributors, we're just barely teetering on a critical mass point in which. Which with positive imagery like doTERRA has established, that means that network marketing is reaching a point where enough people would have enough solid knowledge about it to actually have a correct opinion about it.
Yeah.
Or a critical mass. And usually it's critical mass in which something starts to really accelerate. You think about telephones, for example, when they first came out. Telephones didn't become an issue until, even a deal, until it reached a critical mass point. Same thing with television, radio, cell phones. When I first went to college, the first cell phones were bricks, and there was not 1% of the population that had cell phones, and so therefore some people wondered why you even needed them.
Yeah.
And but now look at it. It's nearly, I don't know what cell phone penetration is, but I'm guessing it's obnoxiously high, probably 90th percentile or something.
Right.
Keep going, Courtney, though. I love where you're taking this call.
I just think what's interesting about this, though, is that if we look at just numbers itself, right? Like numbers itself, we can go over every single state here if we wanted to. Right?
Can we do Texas?
If we look at just the numbers,
do you care if we do Texas?
Is false. What was that?
Do you care if we do Texas? I'm curious.
And other thing, Courtney, are these population numbers, are they total population, or are they population 18 years or older?
Okay, well, let me look at. You really want me to look at my census report?
Well, really, it's really the only thing that matters. Honestly, for the sake of this, is households.
Right.
Because if it's a certain number of households, then you typically have one like in my family, we're considered by doTERRA to be one wellness advocate, but there's 6 people in my household.
Right, but as soon as Christian turns 18, then it wouldn't matter because it's only husband and wife.
Yeah.
So my daughter
Right.
just joined doTERRA, for example.
Right. And then
Well, I don't know how the census does their report on population, but let's just be extreme here. Say it was half of that. Okay, so go
Right.
back and do those numbers over half of that.
Yeah,
right?
it
Let's
is.
go back and look at Idaho then.
yeah, still we're talking about 1
Be
or
extreme
2%.
here.
Right, so instead of 1%, it's 2%.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
And see, there your argument falls
So
all
like
apart
that-
because now we're at 2%. And I was
Right.
like,
Right.
I mean, when it was 99%, I felt
Right.
good, but 98, not so much.
So there's still, what I'm saying is, if you look at just numbers, there's still room for growth, right? It's like you brought up a good point, right? So we can look at numbers here all day long, and I can point out exact facts that no state out of all 50 states are truly saturated. They all have room to grow and a large room to grow, right? But since you brought up a point, you're like, that it sure feels like it, right? So let's identify a few things here then, right? Because there are a lot of people who are not enrolled in doTERRA that have heard of it. And so it goes back to what you're talking about, but it feels like it. That exposure is there, right? And so when I think about this, I'm like, okay, so why is this a good thing then? Why is the exposure good that it's there, but people aren't enrolled yet? And I think this is like the low-hanging fruit, right? Like you can walk into an area and half the work's already done for you because they already know about doTERRA, and most likely it's a positive experience they've had about doTERRA, right? Maybe they were sampled, maybe they had a good experience with it, or maybe they just know someone who they highly, think of in a good way, and they're like, yeah, they do it. It must be a good thing. Like there's a lot of positive experience out there and exposure about doTERRA, right? So then you have to ask yourself, well, what is that missing piece of information that those people need to get enrolled? I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to, right? Yeah, lots of people know about doTERRA that are not already in doTERRA. So what is that piece of information that they need to get enrolled? And once you can identify that, then you realize that that feeling of being saturated because everyone knows about it really is your benefit, right?
Right. Well, I will
That's your
say,
advantage.
I will say, Courtney, I live 2 blocks from the corporate headquarters, doTERRA Epicenter, and nearly all of my new enrollments are coming locally, and my most recent builders are local in Utah County, and Seth's most recent builders are Utah County, and so. There you go. The action is still, I look back and I realize I was thinking about this when I very first started. doTERRA was 2 years old and I was number 22,000 distributor. And when I looked at it, when I called my list, I would call, and some people I called were in doTERRA already, even then.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it, and I remember going here locally when it was like picking fruit up off the ground, so to speak, and it was still difficult for people to get people to come to classes. And in other words, not much has really changed when it really gets down to it. And
I think things have changed, though.
yeah, it just the knowledge. Obviously, the knowledge is more broad. I mean,
Well,
more,
it is, but I think it was. I mean, I'm gonna, Courtney. I hope I'm not blowing up your call by about saying what I'm about to say. But it's, but it certainly
It's your
was.
fault if you do.
Yeah, but it certainly was easier for me. And I don't know if it was mental or not. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out because I mean, if you're saying okay, I mean, like obviously when you said okay, we got 50,000 distributorships in Utah. Is that what you said? And let's say, and we
Right.
had 3 million people. Now, of course, Utah has large families. Mm-hmm. So let's assume that let's assume that there's 6 people per family. Now we've got 2 million, and that means we're at a whopping. Let's see here. No, that's wrong. What would that do? It would. Connor, are you doing the math over there for us? So my point is that obviously it's not 3 million people because you got to go down to households, Right.
Right.
And so households are going to
Right.
be.
You do. But even at that, it's still a sick number. There's still so much room for growth.
And that's correct. So let's say that there were 500,000 households, which is extreme. That would be assuming that there's 6 people per home, which is not the case. And that would mean we have 10% market penetration, as far as 10% of the homes in Utah use doTERRA. I know that in certain places in Utah County, near the epicenter of doTERRA, that I've even heard as high as 25% of households in Utah have that, which means that 75% don't.
Right. I mean, I go through my neighborhood and people have heard about it, but but they drive by it.
They drive by it,
and they drive by it every day, and they go, "Oh yeah, there are buildings over there. I see them."
Right. So if you took I'm just throwing out extreme numbers here, but let's say that you had 25% market penetration here in Utah County, which I've heard multiple times. And if that's the case, there's still 75% that don't have it in their homes. 75%. Now, but I think the reason why we feel why saturation seems so real to us is because we have better results in different places. I noticed, I actually sat down with one of my leaders here in Utah, and we said, okay, of everyone you've taught here in Utah, how many of those have enrolled? And then we said, okay, and then outside of Utah, of everybody you've taught outside of here, how many of those have enrolled? And I've had the differences where we've had 3 times the success rate outside of Utah County, right? So 20. Now we had 25. We had about 24% of people that attended classes in Utah County signed up, and outside of Utah, in other markets, it was 66%. Which now, if we were to take these same numbers, you apply 25% to Amway, and they'd be doing backflips. They would die. They would have died and thought they went to heaven.
Right.
And then 66% is so incredibly insanity. It's just incredible, that number. That the problem is that it's not that saturation is necessarily real. It's just that when you're in a brand new virgin market, it's so good that we're spoiled little brats.
Right.
Well, I think that's part of it. I definitely think that's part of it. But think about the person that's just started last week or last month, right? And so they're not even tapping outside of their market, right? Because you really don't start doing that until you hit larger leadership ranks, that you're outbuilding other markets and experiencing what you're talking about, right, Seth? So even if you were to take someone that's newer in the business, right, and they're feeling that, I think, again, it comes down to some other things, too, that people know about doTERRA and have heard about it, but there hasn't been a follow-up to actually get them enrolled. Like, for example, I was just talking to someone a couple of nights ago, and she knows that I do doTERRA, and her daughter was sick, and so I went over and gave her some oils and helped her out. She's like, thank you. And I said, so you're obviously familiar with doTERRA and the oils, and you obviously know I do it, but you called me. I said, why haven't you got your account yet? She goes, oh, well, my mom shipped them to me for free, but I'm out and my kid's sick, and I don't have time to wait for her to send me products. And so there's things like that go on, right? Oh, well, so-and-so's giving it to me for free. Why do I need an account right now, right? So there's things like this that do come up. But this comes down to understanding the value proposition doTERRA has and the value you have to offer people. And so I was talking to her, and I'm like, you know what? I totally get that. I was getting my products for free from my mom, too, before I started doing the business, And I talked to her about, you could get your products for free still. You don't have to get them for free from your mom. You can get them free from doTERRA by creating an income with it, right? And so I think sometimes that someone tells us, oh, yeah, I've heard of doTERRA. Oh, I've been to a class. And then we end the conversation right there. I mean, I see that all the time. Oh, well, they've already heard about it. Right. And so we just move on past them. And I'm like, no, go back to them. Go back to them. They've heard about it. Now you just need to finish closing them. Right. So I think that there's things that we can do, to better follow up with people to ensure that they are enrolling with doTERRA and that they understand the value they have in getting their own products for free and building the pipeline with it rather than just getting products for free from someone else. Right. And it's a matter of taking that time and understanding what that missing piece of information is that they need to help them enroll. And if you will go down that journey with people, I think you'll realize that, saturation isn't real, even for you if you're just starting in a smaller area that you feel is saturated, right?
Right. Courtney, you want me to make your numbers even more sick?
Yeah, because we haven't even discussed the percentage of people that
right.
build.
So only about 15% of people are even attempting to build. So you take your 3 million accounts in doTERRA, and then you can figure that 65% are ordering regularly, and only 15% are
82% have never signed up another person. So we're at 18% or 15%.
Right.
That have actually signed up someone else.
Right.
In other words, they're attempting to even build at all.
Right. But even on the front end, 35% have only ordered one time, or once annually, or in other words, their exposure or use of the product is so minimal that their accounts, probably don't even exist anymore in some cases.
Well, right. And that was something, Alonso, I'm coming to you next, I promise. But that was something I got looking at too. I'm like, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that drop off LRP every month, right? Or that are ordering once a year or whatever. So again, it comes down to what's that missing piece of information. Go better educate people, and they will, get their memberships. They will get on LRP. So it really comes down to taking that time to truly educate people the right way. Like, I feel like that's how you overcome saturation. Educate them, right?
Uh-huh.
I had another example just last night. This lady that, so I'm in Minnesota now, and when I started doTERRA, I was in Idaho, in a small town called Jerome. And she called me. She's like, hey, I need some more products. I'm out, and I haven't ordered for a long time. I can't remember how to get on my account and all of that. And I followed up with her a couple months ago, and I said, hey, I've noticed you haven't ordered for a while. Are you enjoying your products? What's going on? Well, what happened is that she was enjoying them, but her house burned down, and so she just has been consumed with dealing with that. And so now so now she's lost all of her products. So now she's repurchasing and she's buying a natural solutions kit. But if I had lost that contact with her, if I wasn't continuing to follow up with her, then that would be lost, right? And so then we're getting her set up with a natural solutions kit, and then she's like, oh, and by the way, can you tell me how to do this loyalty rewards program again, because I don't like running out of my products, right? So again, it just comes down to really educating those people and helping them. If they're not ordering monthly, then they're not using the products at the right level. And all of that, when doTERRA looks at wellness advocates, that, half those people aren't even ordering. Well, not half, but a good portion of them aren't even ordering, right? So then again, these numbers are still way extreme. Alonso, what do you have to add to this?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
So my little comment is on your question of what's the missing link that will basically get someone to enroll, what's the information. And my comment is that it's not information, it's the trust.
Okay.
So
explain that.
The relationship that you have when it comes to that individual, get them to a point, and this doTERRA is already known somewhat with people. It's the trust that gets them to actually commit to signing up or joining you in building a business. And really, when we're talking numbers here, take just the distribution curve, right? And Rod kind of talked about this, about the percentages of the population and where they need to be when it comes to the stage that doTERRA is at. And what was that number again when you came to overall population in the U.S.? What percentage?
I don't even know overall population in the U.S.
330 million. Or are you talking?
So it's
sorry.
Within it's less than 3%, right?
Actually, Alonso, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I was actually just up in the Canadian grand opening, and they gave the numbers. They said that in the United States, according to population, the population in the United States to wellness advocates is 0.33%.
Oh, wow.
And in Canada, it's 0.14%.
Wow.
Of advocates to population. Not even 1%. 0.33%.
Yeah. So
wow.
If we're talking saturation here, we're not even close to reaching that number of 3%. We're it's the early innovators, right? So it goes like innovators, early adopters, early majority, later majority, and then laggards is basically the last people that, kind of like with the cell phones, like those people that, like, for the longest time didn't want to get cell phones, but had to because everyone else was using it. But when it comes to
That's
numbers,
my brother.
really, like, the saturation is not there. It's non-existent when you're looking at the numbers. The numbers reveal the truth. So, like, if you're ever wondering, it's like, oh my God, there's someone to talk to. It's like, just look at the numbers, because the numbers aren't going to lie to you. Like, your story, your excuses, all that stuff might lie to you, but the numbers, when it comes to the truth behind it, it won't. It's not even close. So as the job of, like, the innovators and the early adopters, like, we're still on the front lines when it comes to, like, educating and empowering every healer in every home. And that's still at the early stages of kind of the building aspect. Like, more people know about doTERRA now, but when it comes to people signing up, there needs to be that trust that develops through, like, your actions, from, like, the consistency that you provide when it comes to educating and empowering others, and also, like, what you put out there, like how you walk. And people are watching. Like, there's people that, when we first, like, began, like, the building, and we told everyone that we're doing full-time doTERRA now, there's people after 2.5 years of kind of watching our actions, finally coming to us and going, like, okay, I trusted you, or I knew, I know about doTERRA, but I have this relationship with you guys, so I'm going to go with you. And that's that's the piece that I want everyone to consider focusing on, is developing those relationships, because it's going to come to a point where doTERRA is going to be so well known, like, they know what it's all about, and now it's just a choice on which person am I going to go with, who am I going to either connect with because they have the value that they provide when it comes to being a customer, or the value that they provide when it comes to building a business. Like, do they have the skills, the mindset, all these things that new people need to get them going?
Yeah, Alonso, you bring up a fabulous point, and I love it. I was in a mentoring program a while ago, and through that program, they taught us the 3 relationships of trust. So I just want to expand a little bit on what you're talking about. And so she talked about 3 different relationships of trust. So you have your relationship of trust, number 1 being, do they trust you, right? And you talked about that, right? And so you have to look at that. Does this individual trust me, right? And then they have the relationship of trust with the product. Do they trust this product? Have they had a positive experience with that product? And then the third one is the relationship of trust with the business, meaning doTERRA. Do they trust doTERRA as a company? And so when you talk about that missing piece and this trust, I mean, I think you're just dead on with this. I couldn't agree more, because if you can help someone understand and trust you, the product, and the company, they would enroll. I mean, I don't know anyone that doesn't have a trust in all 3 of those areas that goes, nah, never mind, still don't want to do it, right? But I know people that have trust in 2 of those areas, but not a third, and so they're hesitant, or they hold back, or they wait, right? And so it's really, really important to establish those 3 relationships of trust, you know, with those people, with the product, with yourself, and doTERRA, the company. I really appreciate bringing that up. Fabulous. All right, Jacqueline, I'm coming to you next. All right, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to point out that, well, when I think of when I started doTERRA, the area that I was starting in, there had actually been a huge Young Living presence. And it was one woman that was kind of the hub of that. And everybody kind of associated her with Young Living. Well, she had actually refused chemotherapy and had died as a result. And so it was interesting coming into the area with a new essential oil product that if people had heard of essential oils, they immediately thought of this lady who they thought was crazy, who should have done chemo and saved her life. And so I felt like there was really big barriers in that way, trying to help people see, you know, the way we approach classes is awesome because we tell people at the beginning, which is something I actually really believe, that we believe in that modern medicine blesses our lives and that we use both. And so as I approach people with that mindset, it helped a lot. But the other thing is that now that doTERRA's oils have been around long enough, and there's so many studies coming out about the efficacy of essential oils, people are so much more open now than when I first started. I really felt like I was constantly breaking down barriers and walls. In fact, I started by approaching all the people I knew that did natural health care, and they had all tried essential oils with little to no effect because there was no therapeutic grade essential oils that were having the kind of effect doTERRA's does. And so when I would approach them, how do you use essential oils? Oh yeah, those don't work. That was like, that's, you know, I thought I was going to come to all these people in natural health care and get them all excited. But if I look at my leaders, like the 6 that I plan on taking me to Presidential Diamond, not one of them had ever used essential oils, natural health care. One of them had used supplements. It's like I had to go to people who hadn't heard of essential oils or ever used them in order to find people who were actually interested. But, you know, fast forward to now, 5 years later, people really see essential oil as legit, whereas back when I started, it wasn't. So that is another super positive thing that we can, you know, that we can look at, is that people have heard of essential oils now. They've heard good things about essential oils. There's so many studies coming out. So I think that's one barrier that people actually don't have any longer, that when we were first starting was definitely, for me anyway, was an issue.
Hey, Courtney, can I mention something on that?
Go ahead.
I actually think that what Jacqueline's saying is really important because the longer that doTERRA goes, what's surprising is that with most network marketing companies and with other types of natural products, the longer they're exposed to the market, the less viable they reveal themselves to be. And the thing that's interesting is that the longer that doTERRA is exposed to the market, the more viable the product, the more viable the company. Like I've been amazed at how well they've actually been able to maintain their how good they actually are. Like they're becoming, the more light that they're exposed to, the better they look, which is very rare.
Right. Right, it is. In fact, I was in a conversation with someone just yesterday who was like, well, you know, let's just see how long they last. I mean, and they brought up Zango juice. They're like, you know, look at them and what they've been through. And they brought up some other, you know, companies. And I'm like, oh, wow, you do not know doTERRA. Let me just explain a few things to you here. You know what I mean? And so I think it's an incredible point for us to realize too. And I think that things like this, if we will look at doTERRA, like I think it's important for us to understand the oils, obviously, and to teach them, right? But I think it's equally as important for us to understand doTERRA as a company and how they do their testing and all of this, because this gives us the knowledge and information to help build that trust with people, with the company, right? And so these types of conversations, I think, are so amazing to have with people and help them understand that, right? Like you have to be able to back up not just the product, but the company and yourself as well, you know? So I think it's incredible doTERRA has done that. All right, we have a few hands here. So we've got area code 303 ending in 3964. What's your name and what's your comment? You're unmuted on our end. You may have to unmute yourself. 303 ending in 3964. What is your name and your comment? All right, are you there? Okay, come on back if you want. Okay, we're going to go to Erica next. All right, go ahead, Erica.
sorry, I raised my hand forever ago, so I don't have a question. I don't have anything to say.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't realize my hand was still up.
Okay, you sure?
Sorry.
All right, no problem. Okay, Gina, we're coming to you next. Let's see. All right, go ahead, Gina.
Hi. Okay, so it's so funny. I raised my hand a while ago, and it wasn't quite pertaining to what you guys were talking about at the time, but now it does. So my husband, we live in California, and we run, my husband and his family run motels, and we have 5 properties. And anyway, it's an entrepreneurial business. And he was saying something just the other day that really got me excited about doTERRA. And he was saying in the last 10 years, there has been a real decline in people starting up their businesses and entrepreneurship and all of these things. And the reason being is because of the way the government is today. It's really, really hard. We have to pay more out in disability. There's tons and tons of lawsuits that they deal with all the time. There's the ADA that they have to deal with. There's lawyers that go around. And I mean, the list goes on and on of what would kill somebody's enthusiasm and wanting to start a business. And in California, our minimum wage has gone way up, that it's just ridiculous. And so you want the least amount of employees. I mean, it's creating such a mess. And I got so excited because I was like, oh my goodness, this is the time. I think we are in the most amazing time right now in doTERRA because it is so minimal of an expense to get into an entrepreneurial business and to make real money. You do not have to pay employees. You don't have to worry about ADA laws. You don't have to worry about, the only thing we have to worry about is the FDA. And I just am super excited. And the other thing, going to leadership, that got me so excited is that doTERRA is in the top 5 out of all the direct selling companies. It is in the top 5 for revenue making. That's huge. I don't know. For me, I can go to people with so much confidence in asking them to join me in doTERRA because I really know, it's really $100 a month that you spend to get your paychecks coming, at the minimum. And it's such a small expense. Right now I'm working with a hairdresser and I see her crazy life and all the money that she has to put into her products and her rent and all of these things. And we just have a better way. We have a better plan. And the other exciting thing, so we know that it's the world's largest essential oil company. We, it's in the top 5. It beat Apple by a year by hitting their $1 billion mark. It's super duper. If you guys are not excited about getting builders, you better get excited now because people are looking. There's so many people out there that want to be entrepreneurs, but it is a hard market out there. We're living it right now. And my husband is not loving it, and my in-laws are not loving it. They are so fearful all the time of lawsuits, and it happens a lot. And they're not going to back up companies. They always help the little guy, and it's just killing these entrepreneurs. And they're not even doing it. And what was the other thing I was going to say? So yeah. Oh, the other thing is the oils. And so the oils, we all I think know that our world is really crazy, and it's just going to get crazier. And I really don't think that it's a crazy thought to think that there will be a time that we cannot access our medicine, that we cannot get to our doctors. I think everybody in some scary, subconscious way really thinks that is a possibility. And honestly, since I've had these oils, it has given me so much comfort to know that with the world just getting crazier and crazier, that we have that empowerment with the oils to take care of our family if there is, by some way a disaster that we're going to need some medical help, that we have those things. So anyway, I'm super stoked and super excited. And I just think we are in an amazing time right now to grow doTERRA, and people are open and they're ready. That's all I have to say.
Dana, I love that. And the thing is, you're absolutely right. I mean, you look at, again, doTERRA's value proposition. If everyone in the world, let's just say everyone in the world except for you was the last person to enroll, like, would you still enroll? And you would, just for those reasons that you said right there, just that last one alone, because of the value of the product and what they can do for the health of your family, right? So regardless whether there was a business opportunity or not anymore, you would still enroll. And I think that's just super important for people to understand that, right? Like, yes, we all want builders, right? But again, if we look at like the percent of people that actually build, the majority of our money comes from people just using the products. Let's just get real here, And so we want more builders, yes, but it's even more important to just get the oils into people's homes and have them get the results that they want out of them. All right, any other comments on this? David, we'll come to you next.
Yeah.
Hey there, David.
Courtney, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yep.
So, by the way, Gina, yeah, she's on my team.
Hand raised.
She's amazing. That's awesome. I just to feel the passion of people that know what they have their hands on. They know where they're going. They know what they're doing. And I just a couple of things that I wanted to add to the conversation. Like I said, I was just up in Canada last week for the grand opening up there, and the grand opening had about 3,500 people there. And it was really interesting because it was very nostalgic for me. I'm sitting in this room with 3,500 people. It's like a convention. Dave Sterling was there, and it was almost identical to the first convention we ever went to. And that's why it was so nostalgic, because I just had this feeling like, holy cow, these guys are sitting right where we were 4 years ago. Our first convention, we go there, there's 3,500 people, we're all in this little ballroom. And now I look at what doTERRA is doing. And what was interesting is they put those numbers up there. And they said, doTERRA population-wise in the United States,
Hand lowered.
3% of the population. In Canada, it's 0.14% of the population. And then I thought to myself, in the world, okay, 7 billion people, and we have 300 memberships that have been given out. I mean, and the reality is right now, you talk to builders, people that are building this business, nobody's concerned about saturation, because saturation was an issue for network marketing companies 30 years ago. The only people concerned about saturation right now is network marketers that were in Amway 30 years ago. And they used to talk about saturation because they're talking about the saturation of their neighborhood. Now, could a neighborhood be saturated? Maybe. But the reality is a saturation from people that are actually building this business, it doesn't exist. Because all you have to do is call up a friend across the country, get on a Zoom call, invite them to take a look at what you're doing, and tell them, I'm going to talk to you, and then the next time I want you to bring a friend. And you can do that all over the world. And the big builders that I'm talking to, at this point, some of the, people that are out there building, they recognize that doTERRA, from the standpoint of where it's at, has just begun. The reason that doTERRA is a $1 billion company, Joyce, most companies hit $1 billion at way more level of penetration than doTERRA. And the reason is because it takes so many people. But it's the retention side of doTERRA that has caused it, because doTERRA literally hit $1 billion company with about 2 million wellness advocates. That's unheard of. Typically, you're millions and millions and millions of people to get to that point, because you got all this fall off and you got all these people going out. And you think about it, if your retention is 8 to 10%, you've got to have 10 million wellness advocates or 10 million members to get to a $1 billion company. And so people have this idea, they think, oh, doTERRA is already $1 billion company. Opportunity's gone. Well, they did that on 5 people. Right? And so the reality is when you look out there and you look at what doTERRA has done and where it's at globally, 80% of doTERRA's numbers are here in the United States, 20% internationally. 20, international, most companies almost from day one, that's opposite, right? They're 80% international and 20% domestic.
Right.
And the reality is when domestically we're 0.33% of the population, it's just mind-blowing to me. And the reality is what I love the fact that doTERRA has created such an incredible, I call it reputation, I don't know, this image, brand, because I was talking to somebody the other day. They'd been given they'd been talked to by a Young Living rep, and they said that the Young Living rep had told them that basically the only oils that you could take internally were Young Living and doTERRA oils.
Oh wow!
And this is somebody that was building a Young Living business, and they told her that. And it's like, how phenomenal is that that we're even being brought up, obviously in this situation it was in positive, in the sales process of another company because the reputation is so good. I sat in a meeting the other day, and this gal, this is up in Canada, she said, before I signed on, I went online and I tried to find as much dirt as I could. She says, and it was amazing to me how little there was out there on doTERRA. Now, is there? Can you find it? Can you really? Yeah.
Sure.
But the reality is they've done such a good job with people that there's just not a multitude of people out there complaining. And the reputation, when you have that kind of penetration, right? If it really was extremely deep, there would be a lot more of that. But on the side of from the actual the concept of saturation, the saturation that occurs only occurs in your own mind.
Right.
Now, granted, there are areas that have a lot higher awareness. And I absolutely agree with that. And when Seth says it's more difficult, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I think that in certain ways it is. But in other ways it's not. Because
and in ways like that was talking about, it's easier.
Right, because they enroll, and nobody ever serviced them. Nobody ever took care of them.
Courtney,
how many people are sitting out there floating around in that environment where they just haven't had somebody that could say, you know what, let's sit down, let me do a membership overview, let me help you understand how to get on and how to do some of these things. And there's a need for that. But I look at it this way: there's 7 billion people on the planet. 20 years ago, as Rod said, the cell phones, there weren't any cell phones, and now look at every house has a cell phone. In fact, you go to third world countries, they can't eat, but they have a cell phone. I truly believe that the oils are on that path because the world needs wellness. And the world needs wellness in a way that they can handle it from a grassroots level, from the home. And they're looking for it. They're looking for it everywhere. And so it will happen. It will expand. You will get into these worldwide markets because our network now is global. It is. We're affected everywhere by what's happening all over the world. And so as you're looking at how am I going to build my business, I encourage everyone, build locally first. Get your teeth cut. Cut your teeth locally because it's just easier. But expand. Talk to your people. Right. There's no limitation on who you can talk to. With Zoom and with GoToMeeting and with the technology that we have now, there is no limitation on where you can build your business if you so desire.
Courtney.
I appreciate bringing that up, David, because I think it's a really good point that, saturation is going to occur in your mind if all you can think about is your neighborhood, right, and those people directly around you. But when you look at it globally about what doTERRA can do, then saturation doesn't even exist, right? And so I love that you brought that up. And Gina, I love that you brought up, just your passion and stuff, because the reality is, if you're going around and you're feeling like, oh, this is saturated, I don't know if this is going to be good, I'm going to have this class, I'm going to try and convince these people to do this, they're going to see that and they're going to feel that, right? That's going to reflect, and people are going to be able to sense that. And so that if you can work through this limiting belief of saturation, then people are going to be like, holy crap, I can do this. She's still doing this, right? And so I think those are great points that have been brought up. We've got a few more hands to get through, and we're almost out of time. Seth, Rod, you guys had your hand up. I don't know who wanted to talk.
Yeah, I did. So I mean, look, the reason I just want to, I don't know that it's helpful to tell people who are in an area where they feel saturation that saturation is a myth, because to them it's real. And now granted, like, and of course, like Thad Chandler is a perfect example of this, where, you know, he called me up after he got started and he said, I called 25 people today and 23 of them were already in doTERRA. Now, what that means, obviously, is that certain pockets of people, there can be a lot of saturation take place, right? That can certainly happen. And I think we're being a little dishonest to say that it can't, because of course it can. I mean, like, for example, if you go to church with, you know, like, let's say that you're part of a particular church, and you have, 10 people in that congregation that are passionate about sharing oils, and they all have the same friends, and they're all calling the same friends, and their shared network is getting contacted 10 different times, and then the person picks up the phone and says, no, I've already been contacted by this person, this person, this person, I'm not interested. That's why people start feeling the saturation. Because
right, but I think that's where you have to get real about how to network and how to utilize a names list. I mean, how many people actually create the names list and only put 30 people on it?
I understand that, but just hear me out. All I'm saying is that you can be part of a particular neighborhood or a town or a church or your social network that has a lot of people that have if they're not in doTERRA, they've been approached by people in doTERRA multiple times. And so when you're saying, well, they need more people on the names list, I agree with that. But if you have 10 people with 1,000 people on their names list, and which never happens, but let's just say it did, well, then it feels like your market is shrinking, because you feel like you're competing with people over that same network of people. Like, how many people on my names list were also on other people's names lists? Do you see what I'm saying? And that causes this feeling of saturation. But I think but with all of that said, I'm not trying to say that saturation is real. I'm just saying that the perception is very real because of things like that, like I just said. And so I think that instead of saying, well, saturation isn't real, because people go, well, that's fine that there's 7 billion people in the world, but I know 200 of them. And those 200 have all been approached by doTERRA. And so it's over for me. That's how people feel, that it's over for them, that they missed the boat because they should have got on it before all of their friends were contacted. Now, with all of that said, I can tell you that what Jacqueline and others have mentioned on the call is absolutely real. And that is that there are second and third and fourth and fifth harvests with the exact same networks of people. Just like I grew up farming hay, there are 5 cuttings of hay, at least in where I grew up in Washington, from the same field every summer. And the reason why is because people get approached, and people even sign up, and then they go inactive, and they were never taught how to use their oils. They've even been to classes. They've even tried to build the business. But then years later, and then they quit, and years later, all of a sudden, they're interested again. And so that cycle is going to continue to happen. And if you're in this, and you've gained the trust of your network, like Galanto mentioned, then all of those people will eventually, not all, but a lot of those people will come back to you, and it'll just continue to flourish. Your business can continue to flourish and succeed. But I think that we need to be sensitive to the person that's going, all I know is that everybody on my name's listed is in or has been.
I don't think that anyone is trying to say that I think what everyone's trying to say is if you look at numbers, we really look at numbers here, and are extreme even with numbers, that saturation doesn't exist. Right. But yes, that feeling does, right? Yeah. And so I don't think that anyone disagrees with that. I think all of us have experienced that ourselves, or within our organizations we see that. So I'm not trying to belittle that, and I don't think anyone else is either. I think I was just trying to help paint that picture that look at numbers, and then let's look at all these other factors in it as well.
Yeah,
you know
the numbers don't lie. There's no doubt that the numbers don't lie.
Right.
I mean, you can think that it's you can believe that, and even in your particular little neighborhood or church or whatever that you're a part of, it may be very popular. But if you are committed to the business and are willing to look outside of your comfort zone of connections, then there's an unlimited potential with this. And you could even say, you could go so far as to say that the top income earners in the company haven't even joined doTERRA yet. If you look at the history of doTERRA, let's go 100 years out, the top income earners may not have even joined doTERRA yet.
Right. Most serious people won't join a company until it's at least 7 years old. And so really, right now, if you think about it, the company has mastered branding, they've mastered distribution, they've mastered sourcing, they've mastered customer support. The likelihood of the company going out of business because of management error is virtually zero now at this at this stage. And so most people that look at network marketing as a profession wouldn't even examine a company until it's 7 years old. And so we're right in that state where doTERRA actually has all the pieces figured out. So there isn't going to be a massive strategic error in terms of did they underplan for growth or something like that. That time frame is already gone. And the reality is every company in every industry ebbs and flows. There's excitement and attention towards brands, and then that brand kind of has a dip or whatever, and then it reemerges as it cycles through its own life cycles and things like that. And the reality is those that succeed in a big way in network marketing are those that are heavily and deeply passionate and committed to and loyal to their company over a long period of time. And if that's you, then you can pretty much assure statistically that if you stay committed to your company, you ride for the brand, for example, and it's a consistent output, you will see the ebbs and flows of doTERRA, but in the end, you will be massively larger than you are today. And that's just the fact.
Even Amway. So Amway in the last 5 years went from $6 billion to $11 billion, something like that.
Yeah, and that's just been since I joined doTERRA.
Since we joined doTERRA, Amway has grown by $5 billion.
Right, and
a
lot of that's international. I just did a statistic on David's number. International penetration 0.0004.
Right. So, but the point being though is that look, be in this. That you've got. I mean, we talked about this morning. I don't think another doTERRA is going to come along in our lifetime. We've thought about it. I'm like, are the stars ever going to align like this ever again?
I've never seen anything.
I've never seen it either, and I'm trying to look for examples where it existed in other network marketing companies. I still can't find it.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, so then when you look at it and go, wow, I mean the stars really aligned on this thing. This is incredible that we got in when we did. That we're here in the first. If you got in right, if you even joined today, it's incredible what the opportunity that's in front of us.
Right.
Because the growth, if we follow, this is going to outdo what Amway's done. And so you kind of go, well,
essential oils have been around for 1,000 years or thousands of years. And now, if you look at other products that maybe people get excited about for a short period of time, it's like technology or other types of commodities that ebb and flow with technology. And so they come and go. And this is one of those rare product lines that has just been, it is where it is.
It's always been here.
Right.
It was used before, and it's reemerging on the scene, and it's not going away.
Right.
And it's applicable to everyone. And then you happen to have this company with an incredible leadership and foresight.
Awesome management.
The management team.
All the structures
and you're just
in
kind of
place.
go, wow, this is going to be around 100 years from now.
Right.
And so, I mean, the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I actually think the highest income earners are yet to join. Mm-hmm. I think if we were to look 100 years out and go, yeah, do you remember when so-and-so joined? It was 50 years after the company started, and they really learned how to market in this particular. I actually think that'll happen. Sorry, Courtney, I'm taking over your call. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that people knew we do get it. Like there is a feeling of saturation, but if but that doesn't need to ruin your commitment, because if you're committed enough to get outside of your own networks of people and get into new networks, then there literally is no limit to your growth.
Exactly.
Right. And I think it's just important that if you do feel that way, to reach out to your upline and mentor with them on how to do that and how to get out of your network, right? And then you have to be willing to go there and do that, because it's really just going to come down to that. I know we're out of time and we've gone past it, but I do just want to grab, there's lots of people raising their hands. I'm so sorry we didn't get to everybody, but Pramila, I do want to go ahead and get to you real quick before we end the call.
Thanks, Courtney. I'll try and keep this concise. I did get dropped a couple of times during this call, so I didn't hear what everybody had to say, but I apologize if I'm going to repeat a little bit of it. I do agree with what has been said and what I've heard, that, the idea of saturation is our perception, and a lot of it lies in our posture. If we walk around with the idea and this heaviness that we are, in a saturated market, then every conversation that we have with a potential builder or customer has a different tone to it. It has a tone where we're leaning into them instead of magnetizing and drawing them into us. We no longer hold a cookie. We look like we want something from them. So it's very important, I think, to kind of reconcile in your head that this concept of saturation is just, not real, and it's not true. Now, I look at myself as an example, and I see, who I've been in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, the circle of my friends has changed. I went from, being in a circle where I was, I owned a marketing company, and then my social circle, comprised a lot of people who were, friends of my ex, who wasn't a great guy, and so his friends weren't that great. And then I went into a circle where a lot of my friends and the people I spent time with were in the same situation I was in. We were all recovering from a really difficult time in our lives. We were trying to find a way. And I look at who I am today and the friends I have today. I work with people, and the people I call my friends are people who make tons of money, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is the mindset of the people that I call my friends today are people who want to build orphanages and want to build a deeper meaning into their homes and into their communities and into their lives. So if you feel that the market is saturated, then you're really saying that you've met everybody that you're going to meet in your life, and that's just not true. And one of the things I tell my team is that, if you let me free you right now, I'm going to tell you that the people that you know are not the people you are going to soar with. The people on your names list are not the people who are going to build this business with you. You have not met them yet. And I'll tell you, one of the best lessons I learned was from Rod. And he told me, when you get stuck and you feel like you're, like spinning your wheels, the problem is not with everything around you. The problem is with the rut that you are walking in. So walk out of that rut. So change your pattern, change what you're doing with your life, change how you're living your life, change the pattern with which you are moving through your day, and you will meet new people, and you will find new people. And if you make the room in your life to attract the kind of people you want, and you need to be clear about that, you will. Because I'll tell you, there are people out there who are waiting to be found. I am case in point. I am nobody anyone knew in doTERRA. Nobody. I was not on anyone's names list, but here I am. And it's because somebody stepped out of a rut. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the person who enrolled me. It was Don Olson. I don't know. But got to step out of that rut. And believe me, you've not met every single person that you're going to meet in your life, because that sucks. So there's no such thing as saturation. And, the cool thing is that, we're not really a species that's going to stop procreating. People are turning 18 every single day.
Oh, Pramila, I I'm so glad I called on you, and I just can tell you I love you. Like,
The top income earner hasn't even been
I know
born
we're
yet.
so out of time, but what you said was so important for people to hear, and I'm bummed that a few people have dropped off the call because you're so right. And I even just sat there and thought about that myself. I'm like, holy crap! Yeah, the people that I network with and associate with and call my friends now today are not the same as 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And the caliber of people are becoming higher and higher all the time that I associate with. Like, it's just, oh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. I'm so happy that you're able to share that with everyone on the call today. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call and for all those that have participated. Please get this out to your teams and those people that are feeling this way, and hopefully this will be able to benefit them, and all of us will continue to grow our businesses and reach our goals that we have set for ourselves. Thank you, everybody, and I wish you a very happy and successful week.
If you've enjoyed our videos, be sure to go over to edgesuccess.tv and subscribe to our YouTube channel.